Niccolò Machiavelli, the ruthless philosopher of power, understood something most modern self-help gurus won't tell you. Ambition isn't just helpful, it's essential for survival. In his seminal work, The Prince, Machiavelli didn't merely suggest ambition was important. He demonstrated how its absence leads to downfall. Consider this. Every ruler who became complacent in Machiavelli's historical accounts was eventually overthrown, while those who maintained their hunger for growth consolidated power and left lasting legacies. This isn't just political theory. It's a fundamental law of human nature that applies equally to your career, relationships, and personal development. The modern world has softened our understanding of ambition. We're told to find balance and be content. But Machiavelli would call this dangerous nonsense. His research into successful rulers revealed an uncomfortable truth. Those who reach the top and stay there never lose their edge. They maintain what we might call controlled ambition. Not the reckless, impulsive desire for more, but a disciplined, strategic hunger that fuels continuous growth. This is the critical distinction most people miss. Uncontrolled ambition burns out quickly and makes mistakes. Controlled ambition becomes self-sustaining, turning every achievement into a stepping stone rather than a resting place. Why does this matter today more than ever? Because we live in what strategists call a Red Queen world. You must run faster and faster just to stay in place. Technological change accelerates competition in every field. Globalization means you're no longer just competing with people in your city or country, but with the entire world. In this environment, satisfaction equals professional suicide. Machiavelli observed this same dynamic in Renaissance Italy's cutthroat political landscape, where city-states that became complacent were quickly conquered by their more ambitious neighbors. The parallel to modern business and careers is impossible to ignore. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Neuroscience shows that our brains are wired to seek comfort and routine. It's energy efficient. But this very wiring becomes our greatest liability in a competitive world. Machiavelli's genius was recognizing that successful leaders must override this natural tendency. They create systems to maintain their ambition artificially when natural motivation fades. They surround themselves with reminders of what they haven't yet achieved. They study competitors not just to learn, but to fuel their competitive fire. This isn't about being greedy. It's about survival in a world where standing still means falling behind. Consider the example of Cesare Borgia, one of Machiavelli's most admired rulers. When Borgia conquered a new territory, he didn't pause to celebrate. He immediately began consolidating his gains and planning his next move. This pattern repeated until his untimely death. Modern equivalents exist in every field. The entrepreneur who builds one successful company and immediately starts another. The athlete who wins a championship and begins training for the next season the following week. The artist who completes a masterpiece and starts experimenting with new techniques. The common thread isn't dissatisfaction. It's the understanding that their craft has no finish line. This brings us to the first practical principle of Machiavellian ambition, the concept of constructive dissatisfaction. Unlike toxic discontent that breeds unhappiness, constructive dissatisfaction is the ability to appreciate your achievements while remaining keenly aware of how much further you could go. It's the mental framework that lets you celebrate a promotion while already considering your next career move. that allows you to enjoy a relationship milestone while continuing to invest in its growth. Machiavelli would argue this isn't just useful, it's necessary for anyone who wants to maintain their position, let alone advance it. The second principle is what we might call strategic paranoia. While unhealthy paranoia sees threats everywhere, the strategic variety maintains just enough suspicion to stay vigilant. Machiavelli famously advised rulers to study both war and their own state during peacetime, because conflict was inevitable. Translated to modern life, this means developing your skills before you need them, building your network before job hunting, and saving money before financial emergencies. The ambitious person doesn't wait for motivation or necessity. They prepare relentlessly during what others consider downtime. Perhaps most importantly, Machiavellian ambition requires what I'll term purposeful imbalance. Conventional wisdom preaches work-life balance as an ultimate good. But Machiavelli's study of history's most accomplished figures reveals they often pursued intense focus for extended periods when working toward major goals. The key is making these periods of imbalance intentional and time-bound, pushing hard when it matters most, then briefly recovering before the next push. This cyclical approach to ambition prevents burnout while allowing for extraordinary achievement. The truly ambitious understand that hunger cannot be left to chance. It must be engineered into your daily existence. Machiavelli observed that the most effective rulers created systems to sustain their drive, even when natural motivation waned. They didn't rely on fleeting inspiration or emotional highs to fuel their progress. Instead, they built structures that made ambition inevitable. This is the critical difference between those who achieve temporary success and those who sustain it indefinitely. The former depend on motivation. The latter create systems that make progress compulsory. Consider the practice of what we might call competitive benchmarking. Machiavelli advised rulers to constantly study both allies and enemies, not just to learn from them, but to measure themselves against the best. In modern terms, this means deliberately placing yourself in environments where you're not the most accomplished person in the room. It means tracking not just your own progress, but how your growth compares to the top performers in your field. This isn't about unhealthy comparison. It's about using external reference points to prevent the self-deception that often accompanies isolated success. When you see someone achieving more with similar resources, it reignites the hunger that comfort extinguishes. Another powerful tactic is what Machiavelli might have called strategic discontent. Where ordinary people see problems as frustrations, the strategically ambitious see them as fuel. Every obstacle becomes proof that more work needs to be done. Every limitation highlights new opportunities for growth. This mindset transformation is crucial because it turns what would derail most people into what propels you forward. The key is maintaining just enough dissatisfaction with the status quo to drive improvement, but not so much that it breeds frustration. It's the difference between saying, "This isn't good enough," and "How can I make this better?" Machiavelli would also emphasize the importance of what we might term calculated exposure. Just as Renaissance rulers maintained networks of informants to stay aware of threats and opportunities, modern ambitious individuals deliberately expose themselves to challenging ideas and uncomfortable truths. They read beyond their comfort zone, seek out conversations with people who disagree with them, and regularly audit their own weaknesses. This practice prevents the intellectual complacency that inevitably follows prolonged success. By systematically seeking out what you don't know and what you're not good at, you maintain the beginner's mindset that fuels continuous growth. Perhaps most controversially, Machiavelli would advise maintaining what we could call a hierarchy of ambitions. Not all goals deserve equal attention, and the truly strategic thinker constantly prioritizes which ambitions to pursue and which to temporarily set aside. This goes against the modern obsession with having it all, but history shows that extraordinary achievement in any domain requires concentrated focus. The trick is to sequence your ambitions strategically. Pursue one area intensely while maintaining others at a baseline level. Then rotate your focus as circumstances change. This approach prevents the dilution of effort that leaves many people perpetually busy, but never truly accomplished in any area. The physiological dimension of sustained ambition cannot be overlooked. Machiavelli's contemporaries understood what modern science now confirms. Physical vitality directly impacts mental drive. The rulers who maintained their edge longest were those who cared for their health as a strategic asset rather than a personal indulgence. Today, we understand this as the mind-body connection. Proper sleep, nutrition, and exercise aren't just about well-being, they're performance enhancers for your ambition. Neglecting them is like a ruler neglecting his army's training. You might not notice the decline immediately, but when challenge comes, you'll be unprepared. A particularly insightful Machiavellian tactic is what we might call legacy thinking. Many rulers maintained their ambition by constantly considering how history would judge them. In modern terms, this translates to regularly visualizing your future self, looking back on your current actions. Would your future self, the person who's achieved everything you hope to achieve, approve of how you're spending today? This temporal perspective creates a powerful accountability mechanism that keeps daily actions aligned with long-term ambitions. It's why the most accomplished people seem to have extraordinary self-discipline. They're not denying themselves present pleasures so much as they're consistently choosing their future selves over momentary distractions. The final component of Machiavellian ambition is perhaps the most counterintuitive: the art of strategic patience. In our era of instant gratification, we've forgotten that true ambition often requires playing the long game. Machiavelli observed that the most successful rulers knew when to act with lightning speed and when to move with deliberate slowness. They understood that some ambitions require years of careful cultivation before they bear fruit. This temporal flexibility, the ability to shift between intense action and patient preparation, is what separates lasting success from flash-in-the-pan achievement. Modern research in psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies of so-called overnight successes invariably reveal years of preparation behind their sudden breakthroughs. The ambitious individual therefore develops what we might call process orientation, the ability to derive satisfaction from the daily work itself, rather than only from its results. This is crucial because it creates a self-sustaining cycle. The work becomes its own reward, which leads to more consistent effort, which in turn produces better results. Machiavelli would argue this is the only sustainable form of ambition, one that doesn't depend on external validation to maintain its drive. A particularly powerful technique is what we might term ambition scaffolding. Just as builders use temporary structures to support a building during construction, The strategically ambitious create temporary systems to support their growth. These might include accountability partnerships, progress tracking systems, or artificial deadlines. The key insight is that willpower alone is unreliable. Creating external structures makes your progress inevitable rather than optional. Machiavelli's rulers understood this intuitively. They built systems of advisors, spies, and administrative structures that kept their states functioning optimally, even when their personal attention was elsewhere. The social dimension of ambition cannot be overstated. Machiavelli emphasized that no ruler succeeds alone. They cultivate the right alliances, mentors, and competitors. Modern, ambitious individuals do the same, carefully curating their professional networks, not just for immediate gain, but for long-term growth stimulation. They understand that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, so they deliberately associate with those who challenge them to grow. This isn't about using people instrumentally, but about recognizing that ambition flourishes in certain environments and withers in others. Perhaps the most profound lesson from Machiavelli is what we might call the paradox of satisfaction. The rulers who remained perpetually hungry weren't unhappy. They derived deep fulfillment from the pursuit itself. This reveals a fundamental truth. Sustainable ambition isn't about never being satisfied, but about finding satisfaction in growth rather than arrival. It's the difference between thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve X, and I'm happy because I'm progressing toward X. This subtle shift in mindset is what allows some people to maintain their drive for decades, while others burn out after their first major success. Ultimately, Machiavelli's message about ambition is both challenging and liberating. Challenging because it requires us to reject complacency as a virtue. Liberating because it shows us that our potential isn't fixed, but can be continually expanded. In a world that increasingly rewards comfort and convenience, maintaining your hunger becomes a revolutionary act. It's not just about achieving more, it's about becoming more. And in that becoming lies not just success, but a life of continual growth and self-discovery that would make even the great strategist himself nod in approval.